would please join me, and I'm going to bring up Pamela Eaton. Pamela Eaton's official title here is Planning Program Administrator, Long Range Planning, County of Maui. Pamela?
Thanks, Joe. Thank you, and thank you to people I bumped in front of. No, I apologize. We are going on to our 25th meeting, which is like from 5 to 10. We were there last night. We're going to be there tomorrow night, and I have a lot of work, as I know Tamara and Jen and Angela know that I've got to finish, so I've got to go back to the office when I'm done. So I really appreciate that. I first of all want to thank everybody in this room. I've lived in Maui for 10 years now. Before I came here, community engagement is like the heart and soul for me. It is so, so, so very important, and it's why I went into government as opposed to becoming an evil lawyer. But in all truth, though, I served on the Police Athletic League for football. I was the first female football coach in Rhode Island. And then I also served with Girl Scouts. And I did that because I had a daughter and I had a son. And I know a lot of the reasons why you guys do what you do is for your family. So I thank you so much. I met many of you over the past 3 years through the update and the community engagement. And it has been so vitally important for people to be involved. How many people here in the room even know what the West Maui Community Plan is? That's amazing. That's great. That is awesome. In the last 3 years, how many folks have come to one of our community engagement events? Thank you. How many folks have come to a CPAC meeting? Thank you. See, this is great. This is West Maui. This is awesome. This is why I love working here. So for those of you who've not had the opportunity to go to a CPAC meeting, let me also say my huge thank you to Chivo, who's right here, because all of the meetings have been broadcasted by Akaku. So you're going to see in my presentation, eventually if it gets up, we have a website, and it's wearemaui.org. Everything that has ever happened in this community is on that website. So basically all of the previous presentations we had, all of the discussion we had, the summaries, videos, everything is on wearemaui.org. So I would invite you to take a look at it. You can even pull it up on your phone instead of, I don't know, playing Scrabble, but it's a great website, and it's really gonna pull together a lot of folks. Since I'm stalling for time, I also wanna thank Roz Baker. I too serve on MPO, but on the Technical Advisory Committee, and I just want to tell you right now, because I've been working very closely with HDOT from my county perspective, Roz has been a great advocate for folks here in West Maui in terms of dealing with rental cars, fees. One of the most critical issues in West Maui that we're addressing in the community plan is, of course, Ho'oponopono Highway. Not only its susceptibility to coastal erosion and sea level rise, but just basically the limitation we have with that one access route. So I want to thank Senator Baker, because it's really been tremendous in doing that. Oh yeah. Okay. Do the presentation mode. I hate macros. I'm sorry. Not an Apple user. Thanks, you guys. Perfect. Thank you. Okay, great. Maybe we can catch these lights. I don't know. There you go. Perfect. Beautiful. Okay, so tonight, believe it or not, I am going to go through this rather quickly, because I think a lot of you might have heard some of it. And that is, I'm going to talk about the process very quickly, because I think that's important. What's happening right now, where we're at with the community plan, and then the CPAC process and what's been happening with that. Very quickly, this is essentially the planning framework for Maui. So for those of you that are new, or building emergency rooms, or whatever, it's important to know that the planning framework is, we have a Maui Island Plan, which basically dictates the density of our development through urban growth boundaries and rural growth boundaries. That was approved by the County Council in 2012. The role of the community plan is to basically paint, if you will, within those lines, community plan land use designations. So in Maui, you have 9 growth management areas, and the CPAC and the community is going to decide what do we want to build, where, or how do we want to build. Very, very important when we're dealing with issues such as affordable housing, emergency rooms, and so forth. So obviously you can see West Maui here. These are all the community plans, and the only other thing I want to say is that Resolution 1313, which was passed by the County Council in 2013, decided the order. So here's the order. So the next area we're going to be going to, we're continuing down the Gold Coast, is we're going to be going to South Maui. So that order was decided by the County Council. So basically, what do they do? Critically important in a community plan, a lot of folks refer to it as basically the blueprint for the community. It really designates and identifies the land use, and one of the things that we have found in working with West Maui, huge amount, I'll get into this, of feedback, but it's basically trying to decide the development character and the design, retaining neighborhoods, where do you want development? So it really looks at that. And then implementation. The community plan is what's going to be implemented, and we'll get into how that happens. The process so far is we start with research. We started 2.5, 3 years ago. Basically interviewing 75 people throughout West Maui. We did a huge amount of research in terms of what does the Maui Island Plan say for West Maui. What does the existing 1996 plan say? What has been implemented? What has not been implemented? What's relevant? We've worked with all the state and county agencies in terms of what's the best available information with regard to, for example, affordable housing, the need, economic analysis. So we do a huge amount of research coming in. We spent about 2 years doing community engagement. That was really important. If you think back 2.5 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, and what we were faced with, and I say readily deserved, was a complete lack of trust with the community and the government and local government here in Maui County. And I think a lot of that is because, quite frankly, past community plans have failed. A lot of the actions are not being implemented. The policies are inconsistently followed. And so there's a lot of frustration, a lot of anger. I totally understand. So our number one goal really was to try to really work with the community and try to rebuild that trust. None of this is gonna work if you do not have the community's trust, none of it. So no matter what it takes, we had many talk story sessions with maybe 4 people, 12 people, whatever it took to really air things out and to address concerns. From that point, we really designed things such as the website, online surveys, and how to address the various topics and issues of concern in West Maui. After that, what we're in right now is the Community Plan Advisory Committee, and I'll talk a little bit about that. That will finish up hopefully in the next 2 months or so, and then we go to the Maui Planning Commission next, and then the Maui County Council. So one of the things that's really important, if you go to wearemaui.org, we have technical resource papers. So we kind of started everything with getting these written, and it really addresses the issue. Like, for example, the first thing that's interesting is a community profile, gets into the socioeconomic and demographics. We have a very detailed paper on climate change and sea level rise, specifically how it impacts West Maui, wastewater issues, water issues, historic and cultural preservation, the recreation network, in other words, what's lacking in West Maui, what are the needs, land use and analysis on the land use, economic prosperity, very detailed paper on housing, drainage and stormwater issues and so forth, and then mobility, transportation, bus, bikes, sidewalks, and that sort of thing. If you get a chance, these are really important to read because this was sort of the basis for where we developed policies and so forth and addressed issues. You're gonna see this a couple times. This is to try to get it into your head, this website. There you go. Yeah, that's nifty. I thought I took that out. Okay, so the website we created, it's the first time ever for the county to do one for this particular process. And I have to say we're very proud of the fact that as of, I think, maybe 2 weeks ago, we have had 99 public stakeholder meetings, workshops, open houses, and online activities. We've had 2,100 participants. With regard to the website, we've had 187,500 page views. We currently have at least 14,000 users who go on, and there's been at least 23,000 sessions. And then this one I'm really kind of happy about. We've had over 1,752 responses to the questionnaires, surveys, and other activities. So this is what a community plan is about. So when we talk community engagement, this is the intensity of the engagement that's needed within the community. And you can even do better. So with the draft community plan, I don't know how many people are familiar with the existing community plan. This new one is going to look very, very different, with good reason. So I'm going to go through the format and content right now. So essentially, the first section is the plan framework. It's going to talk about the community plan, how to use it, how to change the plan, and then get into some of the demographics, if you will, the history, what are the issues today, and the changes. What's really important, though, is the vision and the goals. All that community engagement I talked to you about that you can read on the website was created with the community, and in particular, there was one group that helped facilitate a lot of the community meetings called the West Maui Alakai. There's a lot of people here in the room. I know Tamara Paulton was very active with this group. Joe Pluta was very active. A number of people really helped motivate and create the vision. Ekolu Lindsay was a very active member, and they basically helped facilitate identifying the vision, which we'll read in just a minute. Actually, we'll read it now. So, the vision for West Maui, and this was very, very heavily vetted. West Maui has everything its residents need to thrive, including a range of affordable housing options, community services, a diversified economy with family wage jobs and ample access to open spaces and parks, Mauka to Makai. Conscious of the region's rich cultural heritage, care is taken to protect and restore historic sites and to incorporate traditional Hawaiian practices that made the island sustainable for generations. Visitors are welcome with aloha, and everyone enjoys an active lifestyle with safe walking, biking, and public transit routes within and between West Maui's communities and a healthy environment with resilient shorelines. So this was created by your community, CPAC, and the Alakai. Again, you can read it on that website. It's not gonna go away. Okay. This is really important. The CPAC just spent about the last 3 months addressing policies and actions. The reason why, and they came up with 5 goals, the reason why these plans are gonna look very, very different is because these plans are based on the interrelationship of the issues within West Maui. So for example, ready and resilient systems, goal 1. This deals with the impact of sea level rise, hazards, fire, and so forth on things such as infrastructure, wastewater, groundwater, water systems, roads. So that interrelationship. In the past, the existing community plan, everything was completely separate. They didn't even talk about sea level rise. So this is addressing those cross-cutting issues. The second goal, a complete, balanced, and connected transportation network. This deals with everything from public transit to the road, Honopialani Highway, getting to and from the airport. How can we make this better? How can people move around more easily? Sidewalks, a network of greenways, those types of things. The third goal, responsible stewardship of resources, culture, and character. This gets to what makes West Maui West Maui. Gets to traditional Hawaiian practices, sites, culture, environmental scenic views, the beaches, the reefs, cultural and environmental resources. The fourth goal, economic opportunity through innovation and collaboration. This one really talks about, for example, ag, the importance of ag, how to promote ag, as well as the visitor industry. What are some of the issues that West Maui is dealing with the visitor industry, and how do we address those issues and the impacts of that? And then finally, safe, healthy, and livable communities for all. This gets to housing. How can we house and create affordable housing? How can we create neighborhoods? How can we address healthcare and schools and so forth? So if you think about these goals, there's a lot of cross-cutting issues. So the point of this plan is really to address the interrelationship of those issues. Okay, whoops. So we really started this week with introducing the growth management framework. I talked about land use. So the CPAC is starting now. They will be taking maps, identifying where they want various community plan land use designations to occur. Another critical reason to go on the website is we also, in the last year, in addition to doing community engagement, we completely updated and revamped the very, very old community plan land use designations. In-house, I might add. So that added quite a bit of time as well. In doing those new community plan land use designations, we have tried to use the best available planning practices by promoting mixed uses, creating livable communities, trying to get rid of vehicle dependence, trying to be healthier, just really trying to make compact, interconnected communities. So that was really the ultimate goal. The existing community plan land use designations, if you look at the back of the plan, there's like 29 different uses, very, very individual, very separate. There was no mixing. It really was hard to create a livable community nowadays with those particular uses. So for the next 2 to 3 months, 2 months, the CPAC is going to be addressing, and we invite you, please, to come. We have huge maps. We have growth scenarios. We have a preferred, planning department suggested scenario. The CPAC can start with that, and then they will change, they will amend the uses starting with Kapalua, Mauka, and then working our way down the subregions all the way to Ukamahami. So we hope you will be attending and involved. The final really section is implementation and monitoring. The other thing the CPAC has completed is with discussion of policies, there was a discussion of actions. So these are the things such as CIP projects that are going to be critically important to have things happen here in West Maui to help implement the plan. Again, please visit the website. Very important. And here's your CPAC. So huge thank you and appreciation goes to your members. I'm sure you know many of these folks. Your chair is Kai Nishiki. The vice chair is Jerry Dean. And some of the members are in this room. Robbie Buga is here. Yvette Solis. Karen Kankamovich. Don Gerbig is here. Don Hager-Nordblom. Ina Kohler. Hans Michael is here. Dylan Payne, Joe Pluta, of course, and Leilani Pomano. These guys have attended, I'm pretty sure, up to 25 meetings at least, and I know we have at least 20 more. So huge debt of gratitude. And Angela Lucero, who Tamara talked about earlier, replaced Joe Aquino. And we are very lucky to have Angela and her expertise. So we're hoping to finish CPAC. They did ask for an extension. I want to point out, with all the griping and grumbling, West Maui is the most challenging community plan. It has 9 growth management regions. No other community has as many as West Maui. A very diverse population. So I really don't feel bad about this extension because I personally think it's going to be the most complicated community plan that we're going to be doing in Maui County. Next is South Maui, probably the second most difficult. So I love the way we kind of are starting with the easy ones and going down. Once we are done, we're hoping by beginning of April, we incorporate all of the CPAC suggested changes and edits, and it will go to the Planning Commission late spring. Per county code, Planning Commission has up to 180 days to review. They do not have to take 180 days to review. And then once Planning Commission has completed that review process, because we staff them, we will incorporate their changes, and then it is submitted to Maui County Council. And at that point, our hands are off. Office of Council Services takes over, and their review process, they have up to 1 year. And we're hoping that the adoption will be no later than fall of 2021, and that's if the Maui County Council takes a year, so. And with that, thank you guys very much. Thank you to the other speakers, and I'm happy to take whatever questions. Yes, ma'am.
I felt that I'm really respectful for all that the community has done. I'm sorry, I can't speak.
Oh, that's right. I'm trying to hear you.
I'm really respectful for all of the work that people have done. But I really feel there's a big hole. And you said the word one school. Integrated communities. Well, our schools are our children and our future. And I feel that we should do capacity studies, that we have a school in a tsunami zone, that I think that said the word safe a lot. I do
I appreciate that. So let me comment on two things with specific regard to that. Oh, I'm sorry, Chivo. She feels that the schools have been left out. She feels that through this process, we have not really addressed the schools. So let me say that we have. I'm not sure how many things you've come to, but I will tell you a couple of examples. CAM 3 has been brought up repeatedly in terms of its location. It is targeted, and there are policies right now that have been drafted to address that very location and what to do. The other thing I can tell you is with regard to safety and mobility, safe routes to school, and several other suggestions and actions have come up with regard to safely, putting in pathways, putting in maybe public ridership, transit, those types of things. So the schools have been addressed. But probably not to the extent that you want, but I want to add and clarify that the community plan per Maui County Code, when you have the actions and implementation, it's what can the county do? So what the Department of Education, of course, is not within the county jurisdiction, but I think if there were specific things, we could suggest perhaps working with DOE, but the point of the community plan is to really address actions that county agencies can lead and therefore implement. That doesn't mean we ignore DOE, but we have addressed it in many, many ways throughout this process. Yeah.
Well, I guess what I would disagree with you is that we've talked a lot about the state roads, that's all.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying we would suggest working with the State Department of Education. Does anybody else have a question? Great, thank you.
Let's give Pam a big hand, and tomorrow night, Louise, you and everybody else here wants to, tomorrow right here in this room is the CPAC meeting. So there'll be opportunity, if you want to give public testimony, maybe that's something you want to talk about and put it in public testimony. This is good. Great, so right here tomorrow night, CPAC is meeting. And I'll see you all here again tomorrow night. So thank you, Dr. Akina, for your willingness to let her take your spot. This Dr. Kelly Akina, PhD, President and CEO of Grassroots Institute of Hawaii, came to my attention many years ago as I was following what the Grassroots Institute was doing all about, and I was so excited about saying, every time I see a local person, a Hawaiian person, getting involved in really doing things in a proactive way, it's so great. I was so excited about Zeke when Zeke was doing that. Every time I see local guys, especially Hawaiians, getting involved in the issues and doing, making remarkable input into things and willingness to make change, it gets me excited. And nothing is more exciting than this man here, Dr. Akina, and the things he's been doing locally. And the Grassroots is the way he started, but the way he's doing more than that. And please join me in welcoming him, Dr. Kelly Akina, PhD, President and CEO of Grassroots Institute of Hawaii. Thank you, Dr. Akina, for coming here today.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Wonderful. Thank you very much for the lay. Aloha. Well, aloha mai kako, e maholoha, aloha. So good to see you here tonight. I have just been impressed with the content that has been here this evening. Let's give another hand for all the speakers. I think it's great stuff. You're to be commended because you're one of the most civically engaged groups that I know. In fact, when I started coming to Maui in 2013 to work on statewide issues that impact the state, one of the first things I did was hire a Maui resident. I'd like you to acknowledge Joe Kent, our vice president. If you have any questions about Maui issues, you've seen him testify, write articles, do advocacy, and so forth. West Maui Taxpayer Association, what a name. Did any of you, when you were 5 years old and they asked you, what do you want to be when you grow up, say, I want to be a taxpayer? I don't think so, but you know your relationship to the government. You're the ones who write the checks, right? And there's two things that make government go wrong. Government is a great thing. It's the best invention man could come up with because it's the way we can help each other. But government goes bad when, number one, we get less than what we deserve, and two, when we get more than what we deserve. Which do you think is worse, getting less or getting more? Less government or more government? More government. I thought about that today. I came into Kahului Airport again for the umpteenth time, and I had just been reading the J.D. Powers and Associates rankings of all airports across the United States. Have you seen that? Did you know that Maui's Kahului Airport, for mid-sized to small airports, is ranked in terms of customer satisfaction the worst in the United States? Can you believe that? You know, as I was reading it today in the airport, I was thinking, I was a little embarrassed because, you know, I'm so used to the airport. It's quaint. It's like coming home. Do you know what I mean? So we local people don't necessarily think the way everyone else does when they come into our airport. But we're not the only ones in that boat. Danny Noye International Airport on Honolulu, for a large-scale airport its size, is ranked second worst in the nation. So give yourselves a hand. Maui is still a slightly noko'oi. But you know, these are cases of too much government. That's what's going on. You know, why is this the case? Do you realize that for anything to take place, to even the smallest improvement to be made, you need to go through a dozen agencies and authoritative bodies and so forth and get them all lined up on the same page? You know, ANA, All Nihon Airways, tried to bring in double-decker planes in Honolulu's airport. The fix was going to be very easy, just $17 million to get the rampways done. But that thing took years and years to happen and cost millions of dollars or more. Another reason it happens is that in government agencies at the airport, you have to go through a procurement process. Now that's a good thing when you're trying to prevent conflicts of interest and other things in government agencies, but when you're doing a competitive business, it doesn't always work. For example, in many cases, we have to go with the lowest bidder. Now, if you're going with the lowest bidder, you're not going to necessarily get the best job. Do you know what I mean? That's what Hawaiian Airlines found out when it was working on a hangar that took far more to finish and took much longer because the contractor went out of business, leaving Hawaiian Airlines holding the bag. And so it doesn't work. Probably the main reason it doesn't work when we have too much government management is that government does not manage complex entities very well. Have you heard of the Honolulu Rail Project? I was just thinking about that with the West Maui plan. I hope that's not what you have in mind for integrated transportation. But the fact is, we scour the nation to look for solutions, and when you have government entities running things, it's part of the past. 47 out of 50 states have an independent authority running their airports. We are in the past now. That's something we need to consider. There were two great Americans, and it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, these two great Americans are admired by all. They had something to say about how much government there should be. One was John F. Kennedy. Do you remember this? Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Unfortunately, there's been a generation, multiple generations of Americans who've just been asking, what can my country do for me? And you know, when we ask our government what it can do for us, and rather than doing for ourselves, it costs a lot of money. We are now in $23 trillion of national debt, which is terrible. But bring it locally to our county here in Maui, or even to the state. You know from reading Grassroot Institute material that we have 16, we've got, let's see, where are we now? It keeps changing. $23 billion of unfunded liabilities in terms of our employee retirement system and our state's health program for public employees. And if you listen to the governor's recent update on the budget, that's just gone up to $27 billion. But I've got news for you, and you're amongst some of the first people to hear this. A group that has been studying this for about a year has just come out with a figure, and Grassroot Institute was one of the team players in coming up with this, the Hawaii Executive Forum. If you take a look at the next 30 years, what our government here in Hawaii owes, it is a massive amount of money. Over the next 30 years, when it comes to our costs, we owe $88 billion that we do not have. That's the new unfunded liability figure. That means your great-grandchildren are going to be paying for basic costs such as infrastructure and something. That's a terrible thing. When government does too much, it becomes too expensive. Now, there was another great American, Ronald Reagan. He said this when it came to finding solutions in the government. Government is not the solution to our problems. Government is the problem. And I think that's something that here on Maui we realize, because we look to the government, and please forgive me, I respect every effort to improve our housing situation, but it's not getting better. We have one of the worst housing situations in the nation in terms of affordable rentals, affordable homes to buy, and we look to government solutions all the time. They're often very short-sighted. They often end up moving the homeless around or short-term projects. Some of them work for a little while, but we don't look at the ultimate cause, that it's our government that has caused this problem. If you take a look here in the state of Hawaii, we develop on only 5% of all the land mass. Do you realize that we have 95% of all land not developed? We talk about a scarcity of land, and that scarcity of land drives up the price of land, but it's an artificial scarcity. If you take the 5% we develop on and look at the rest of it, 95% is not developed. Half of that is for watershed preserve. That's important, let's not go into that. The other half is for ag. And do you realize that half of ag-zoned land is not being used at all? Anyone who lives on Maui and drives around the island knows that. There's massive amount of land that can be used. If we could possibly increase the supply of land that's available, we could bring down the price tremendously. That's the law of supply and demand. Now, I talked to a professor who studied this, David Callies, at the University of Hawaii, and he says that if we take the 5% that we develop on and we increased it by 1 percentage point, we'd go from developing on 5% of the land to what? 6%. Now, for all you math majors, when you go from 5 points to 6 points, you're increasing by 1/5, which is 20%. So if we just developed on 1 percentage more of the land, we would increase the supply of land by 20%. If we developed on 2 percentage points more, we'd increase the supply of land by 40%. If we developed on 3% more, we'd increase the supply of land by 60%. Now, I am not at all talking about digging into our watershed preserve, and I believe with all my heart that we need to protect our Aina. But we're not going to hurt our Aina when we still leave 90+% untouched. But if we just increase slightly, we could get rid of this idea of a scarcity of land. Now, what does this have to do with government? What it has to do with government is that we have the most restrictive zoning and land use laws in the United States. And these laws are the reason that we can't move beyond this tiny percentage that's developed. If we could somehow change what government does in terms of restrictive zoning and land use laws, we could solve the problem, increase the supply of land, bring the cost of housing down. Does that sound like a good solution? That's something we need to work on. And this is part of the changes that have to happen in Hawaii. I want to leave you with this. At the Grassroot Institute, one of our most popular series is Why They Left Hawaii. It's stories of people who leave the state of Hawaii. Do you realize that now we lead the nation in people who've lived here a lifetime and have decided to leave? We're not just talking about young people who are seeking jobs and opportunities and the opportunity to get a mortgage. We're talking about the next generation, yes, but we're also talking about people who don't want to retire in the country's most expensive state to retire in. We've got to do something about this, and that's one reason that we keep coming back as the Grassroot Institute as your partners. We believe it's important to right-size government, not let it be too small, but not let it be too big. And with that, I'm delighted to serve you here. I'm Keli'i Akina. I wear 2 hats. I'm the president of the Grassroot Institute of Hawaii, as Joe said, and thanks, Joe, for having us out here so many times. I'm also your elected representative in the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. I'm a trustee at large. And Joe asked me to come here and answer questions about OHA, but I'm sure nobody has any questions about OHA either. Thanks for letting me be with you. Anyone have any questions tonight? Yes, sir. Aloha. Maybe we can turn the camera back there, and then I can repeat your question for you.
Well,
Probably won't have to. So I got to watch the PBS segment on the Jones Act that you did, I think about 8 or 9 months ago. And I got to say that I agree with the idea of the reform of the Jones Act. I repeatedly listened to you make that point during that hour segment. And had that been a 3-hour segment, I think more people across the state would have understood the impact that the Jones Act has on the state of Hawaii. It's ironic that we have Haleakala Dairy, but how much of that milk that is produced is here on island under $10 a gallon? So my quick question, well, first of all, thank you for everything that you said, because I believe it, because I have 3 kids and I don't want them to leave unless they have to. But ultimately, is there an effort anywhere in the state right now besides what you spoke of, where there's an actual push to look at reforming certain portions of the Jones Act to give our businesses the competitive edge that they need so they can look at possibly doing better when it comes to paying closer to a livable wage, which I don't really think is attainable, but giving people more money couldn't be a bad thing. But secondly, to give our businesses the opportunity to not have to mark up their product so much because it costs more to ship goods to Singapore, to here, than it does to Singapore.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
Thank you so much for your question, and it's a complex question. It's about the Jones Act.
Yep.
The Jones Act is a 100-year-old shipping law that regulates all of the transport of cargo that goes between one U.S. port and another. And rather than try to give you an explanation of that 100-year-old law in 60 seconds, I'll simply say it raises the cost of living tremendously.
Yep.
There are 2 things that raise our cost of living in Hawaii. It's the cost of housing. That's exorbitant. But the cost of shipping goods here to our state, because we're surrounded by water, is something that's also very exorbitant as well. So the question was asked, is anything being done about it? And the answer is yes, there's good news. On the research level, the Grassroot Institute is getting ready in a few months to release some information on exactly how much it costs every taxpayer in the state of Hawaii. And that's going to be valuable information for our legislators and for our government people and for the public. But secondly, there are people who are paying attention to it. For example, in our congressional delegation, I've talked with Representative Ed Case, who just introduced 3 bills in Congress that have to do with trying to modify the Jones Act. I think the key thing is this, and this is what we believe at the Grassroot Institute. We're not going to get rid of the Jones Act 100%. It's been around 100 years. So we need to kind of give leeway for there to be a modest change, a modification. We feel that if we can somehow update the Jones Act for the 21st century and change part of it to help Hawaii's people, that's going to be good. So we're going to be continuing to be committed to that. Thanks for your question on the Jones Act. Thank you. Any other questions on any other topic? Well, I thank you so much for your attention tonight. If you want to get a hold of us, go to grassrootinstitute.org. That's Grassroot without an S at the end of it, Grassroot Institute. Aloha. Thank you to you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Akina and Joe Kent. Thank you for your patience, everybody, and thank you for the patience of our presenters, especially a gentleman I've met several times, and I'm real excited every time I meet with him. Preston Chang, the developer of Maui Ocean View Limited Partners, talking about Pulilehua and what they're doing here. Please give him a big round of applause. Preston Chang.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to hear me out here. And thank you, Joe, for inviting me to give a little presentation about Pulilehua. It's a development here on the west side that has had some really good news in the last 30 days. Oh, thank you. So Bulalehua is a development, like I just mentioned. It's across 300 acres right below the Kapalua Airport. We have been working diligently ever since acquiring the land from MLP to try to get the zoning and entitlements prepared so that we could actually begin the project. So we are very pleasant to share that, the LUC hearing that we had last month went very well. We have the support from the community and the blessing from the State Land Use Commission to proceed with this project so we can finally start an effort to add some affordable housing and rental housing options here for the community on the west side. So a little bit about myself and our team. My father and I, we run a family and son development team together. My father has had over 40 years of real estate development career, and I've been working with him for the last 10. He has multiple award-winning multifamily and master plan communities under his belt, from 2,000 acres down to 1,500 acres, and including history with affordable housing of an 80-unit project which won a nationwide award for its design and execution. We have projects here on Maui dating back to 2015. We are the proud owners of the Maui Harbor Shops in Ma'alaio that we have been renovating and improving upon. If you've ever been over to Ma'alaio, it's a great area of Maui, and has recently, I think we're finally at 100% occupancy, which is very nice. Lots of great local business owners there, so I would highly encourage you guys to check them out. It's no surprise here, it's been mentioned a lot today, that there is a rental crisis here on Maui. A 2014 DHHC study said that there is no more supply-restrained, demand-challenged housing market in the nation. That's not so cool, but that's why we're here, to try to help that. So looking at the numbers here, the West Maui residential shortage is no joke. Between now and 2040, the next 20 years, there's an unmet demand of more than 5,000 new units for West Maui. And current data suggests that less than 400 units have been built recently. So you can kind of see that the numbers are getting worse, and the problem is not really being addressed adequately. It takes the combined efforts of both the community, the government, and developers to really address this issue, or else it's clearly from the data just going to continue to get worse. Why does West Maui need rental housing? Well, 41% of Maui County relies on rental housing, and 89% of Maui people can't afford to buy a home because it's too expensive and they can't afford the down payment. This is a very common issue in a high-priced market, and it is not really news, but it's just the data that is so alarming here. So in that effort, Pulilehua is the largest new affordable rental project to be approved, and so we are very excited at the opportunity to try to help the community in addressing this really dire need. Pulilehua represents nearly half of the planned affordable housing for West Maui over the next 5 years, so it is, we're very grateful to have that opportunity to try to help the community, which it will have a big effect on. Pulilehua proposes a unit mix that I will describe here for you guys. This is our site plan. You can access it on our website, bulalehua.com. It shows the layout that's been approved of all the different units, the different mixes, and the layout, the school site that was dedicated to the Department of Education. We have a 10-acre sports park. Lots of good stuff on this plan that you guys can spend some time on looking at on our website. So looking at the project description, the rental mix and the way that it all breaks out, we have 700 rentals with 100 for-sale condos, for affordable. We have 100 lots with 100 ohanas on those lots spread out over 300 acres. Those 100 ohanas will be deeded to affordable as well, and if it's rented to a third party. If it's rented to your own family member, then by all means, it's your ohana, you do with it as you please. We have a 13-acre, as I mentioned a second ago, we have 13 acres of land dedicated to the Department of Education that Maui Ocean View will be bringing the utilities to we're building the roads around it and setting it up. This land was deeded to the Department of Education before we actually acquired the property. We will be building a 10-acre multi-sport park that I mentioned on the south side of the property. That's really exciting. We have acres and acres, I think, of open space within the rental community. We have over 20 pocket parks for family members of the community to barbecue, spend time with their family. We will be building a pet park as well for the community, for the pet owners out there. We certainly love our pets. And we will have 70,000 square feet of service and community-based retail, which is a 20,000 square foot reduction from what it was before. So looking at the phasing of the project, we plan on working on our first phase here. It's 240 units. 120 of them will be market rate rental units, 80 will be rental affordable units, and 40 will be affordable for sale units. The breakout of that is we have units spread out in the affordable mix categories of some under 60%, some 60 to 80%, some 80 to 100%, and then another batch in 100 to 120. And what that is AMI, which is average median income. It is a way of addressing pricing for affordable units. Phase 2, we will have 110 units of market rate rentals, 130 units of affordable rate rentals, another 40 units for sale, and then some live-work units. We have 10 affordable and then some market rate live-work units. And so live-work units are really interesting. It'll really caters to the people that are barbers at home or lawyers, doctors, family physicians, things like that, that need a place to live but also want to work out of them. So it's a special type of classification that allows for people to do that, which is a great opportunity for people in the affordable category as well, because office space is also expensive. Phase 3 of the project will have 110 market rate rentals and then 80 affordable rentals with 20 affordable for sale, and that kind of rounds out our totals. At the very end of the project, we will have 100 lots that have the option for those 100 affordable ohanas. So the Puli unit pricing matrix is a question that we get a lot. So what are these units going to cost? So generally speaking, when you're looking at it, it all goes back to the county guidelines set by HUD. So ranging from the 60% category to the 100% category, you may see units in Bulalehua costing roughly $888 to $1,800. And it is very important to note that these rents include the utilities. So electricity, which is extremely high on Maui, is included in that price. And so, as is the water and other things like that. So certainly, it is nice to know that, and not everybody does know that. So this pricing guideline was set out annually by HUD. These numbers here are the 2019 prices. 2020, I don't believe, has been set yet, but every year it comes out, and you can access that from the county. Looking at the units that will be for sale, pricing will be ranging based on interest rates. Once again, this is 2019 pricing, but you may see things priced between $174,000 up to $540,000, just ranging from studios to 1 bedrooms to 2 bedrooms. And that will also range from the different types of product mix that we have to offer, driven by the interest rates, which we're at historically low interest rates, so it's a good time to look to purchase a property. Looking at some of the solutions, we understand that traffic is a big issue, but we also understand that bringing people closer to their workplace is a really real solution for that issue. The people of the community, future community members of Bulalehua, would otherwise be removing 5+ trips around the island from people that may be living in Central Maui that can now live closer to their workplace. So 5 trips per week, if you times that by the 1,000 potential residents, is over 500,000 trips that we're saving of people coming from Central Maui to West Maui to work that now can live in West Maui and work in West Maui, and thus reducing the traffic flow for the majority of the week. Now, certain people may still travel around in their off time for grocery trips and things like that, but generally speaking, taking 500,000 cars off the road is going to be a real impact, and people are going to realize that, which is great. In addition, Bulalehua is connected by 7 miles of walking and hiking and bike trails, so people will be able to work and live and take their kids to school in the community without using a car, which is quite great. We have been talking to different community members about connecting the bike trails to other communities outside of it, and so we're working on that initiative as well. We're looking for solutions that have worked in other cities to try to apply them into this community to just try to help reduce the traffic as much as we can. Looking at some community solutions, you know, our team has over 50 years of building experience. We understand that construction has effects outside the community, and you know, we will be using the county highest standards of making sure that the grading is watered and well taken care of, the SWIP reports are done properly, that we have tall construction fencing, and you know, everything that we do is to try to make sure that it's the most responsible construction practices that we can. Because the site is so large, it's 300 acres, we will have ample space for parking for our construction workers, and you know, we're very far away from the nearest communities, over 450 feet to our neighbors to the north, and over 300 feet, and that's to the closest person. So we're gonna definitely be as considerate as we can while we start construction and make sure that we're using the best standards to reduce the impact. So looking at the project where it was in 2006 and where it is today, approved by the LUC, we've done a lot to generally reduce the density and improve the project. Before it was 882 units with 300 ohanas. Today it's 900 units with 100 ohanas. Before it was 92,000 square feet of retail. Today it's 70,000 square feet of retail. We still have private water and wastewater solutions in the works. Before it had 2 5-acre pocket parks. We have over 20 community pocket parks with a 10-acre sports park. Before there were supposedly hike and bike trails, we have 7 miles of hike and bike trails. In addition to this, we also have 2 bus stops that are planned in the community and a single-story Hawaiian-themed architecture, which you know generally will preserve views from Mauka to Makai, which everyone should be able to enjoy. So looking at the project moving forward, you know, we've gotten that LUC approval, so we are looking to get our phase 2 project district plan approval and begin our site plan for our phase 1 that was discussed earlier, the 240 units. We're very excited to get going and try to address this affordable housing issue that is so important today to the West Side community. Looking at the, you know, some commonly asked questions, things people are asking about are, you know, how is the new plan an improvement? And just looking at it, you know, the community layout is a lot better. And if you go to our website, you'll be able to kind of take a look at those plans in some more detail. But generally, it reduces a lot of the steep walks that existed in the old plan. We're much more flat and laid out, which is a lot better for our seniors out there. You know, no one wants to hike up a 10% incline just to go to grab some milk. It's pretty aggressive. But you know, we've reduced that severely, so that's a good plus. You know, we're providing a lot more rental housing, which is a big issue here on the West Side. There's just no availability, and so in touching on that, it should help a lot of the community members living on the West Side, which is very important to us. We have a 10-acre sports park rather than 2 5-acre parks. Bigger is better. You know, I'm originally from Texas. We own that statement. We have miles of continuous trails, and you know, with the blessing from the LUC, we're ready to start. So this project is no longer a pipe dream. We're ready to bring it to reality. So once again, thank you to the West Side. Thank you for the community. We're looking to serve you all and do the best job we can. We're here to stay, and we're here to do a great job for you also. We're very excited. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bruce.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you very much. Let's give him another big hand. I don't know if any of you have ever been to a land use commission hearing meeting, but I was at a land use commission hearing meeting when they were discussing when Tamara Palton was there, and anybody else that was there. I've never in my 45 years of going to these meetings in Hawaii ever seen a unanimous approval process, and what a breath of fresh air that was to see that, to feel that, to even be present around that, and the willingness that this development team, Preston and his dad, has shown to be responsive to the community needs and to make concessions that before were not even negotiable or nobody would even talk about, to satisfy these concerns and address them and make it. I think this may be the most, well, it is the most widely endorsed and accepted proposal I've ever witnessed. And so give him another big, I could, in light of that, all of that wonderfulness, I was talking with him, as Jim Deagle's already left, he's left the way, they're looking for a site for their 24/7 freestanding ER, and it's gonna take some time, and I was talking to Preston about that. So, there's a possibility, I don't know, but there's a possibility, at least there's not saying, oh no, that's no way that'll work. He's open to it, and Mr. Deagle's open to it. So if discussions can start under that same kind of framework, I'm thinking that with the location being what it is, and proximity to the airport and everything we've talked about, I can't think of a better spot myself. So I'm one of those positive thinkers, I'm hoping and planning and dreaming and putting this in my prayer list already about that this is going to happen over there with him, because I don't know if do you think that a lot of people would want to buy and live close to where this facility is at? Raise your hand if you think that people would like to be close to that facility. Do you think that would help sales and increase saleability of the market price units? I think so.
Oh, yeah.
I think so. Anyway, I love win-win-win situations whenever they can occur, and this would be, in my mind, one of those. But this young man and his father, who are committed to excellence in doing things right, not just, they know what they're doing, and for them to have this willingness and vision is awesome. Very excited about it.
Agreed.
Finally, on our presentation list, thank you for your patience, everyone, and our final presenter, Christy Ono, Civil Engineer, Department of Public Works, County of Maui. Thank you. Please give her a big hand.
Hi, I'm Christy Ono. Thanks. A hand for Vanessa. I've been here from the beginning, and she worked so hard. I'm Christy Ono. I'm with the County of Maui Department of Public Works. Thank you all for having me. Thank you to Mr. Joe Pluta for working with me and letting me talk about our upcoming project. I promise to be really quick. The reason I'm here is, one, to introduce our project to you, let you know what's going on Front Street, and two, to encourage you to provide comments, feedback, let us know your concerns so that we can incorporate that in our draft environmental assessment and make the project better for the community. So the project is on Front Street, and there's two areas along Front Street. They're about a block apart, so we're doing it as one project. The first area is on the Makai or ocean side of the road between Lahaina Luna Road and Dickinson Street. I think we're looking for the lights to be turned off. So the best landmark we can think of is Cheeseburger in Paradise. It's that sidewalk and railing area with a nice view of the ocean. So when we did our research, we found that there's always been some semblance of a wall and a railing and a view of the ocean here as far back as 100 years ago. It was modified in the 1930s and again in 1979, which is what's there now. But its current condition is not too good. The concrete and the wood railing, the wave deflector are starting to crack, just showing really its age and deterioration from the salt water. Other elements in this area, such as the sidewalk, the stairs down to the beach, the benches, and even the light posts are starting to deteriorate. So we're proposing to, address these elements by replacing them and, just making it a safer area for the pedestrians. And the reason we're doing this is because, it's beyond a maintenance level. We've been repairing this this area for years. So, if we don't do anything about it, it'll just be unsafe for the pedestrians. Some of the goals we have are meeting today's design standards, maintaining the character of Front Street, and trying to find an option that's cost-effective yet durable. So the second area is further along Front Street, across from the outlets, between Baker Street and Papala'ua Street. And you might recognize this area as having these leaning coconut trees. There's 10 of them, and there's a lower seawall, much smaller than the previous area. And this picture does a good job of showing what's on the ocean side, because you may not see it very often, but there's a seawall there, there's some stacked rock, and then a natural beach, and of course the leaning palm trees. Over the years, waves have started to displace the rock that's protecting the wall, and the trees are also not in the best health. 2 of them have already fallen, and continued displacement of those rocks will lead to potential damage to the roadway. We also had an arborist look at this area, and he actually recommended removal of these trees due to safety concerns. So some of the options we can pursue to address this area range from an engineered rock revetment, which is the largest footprint and has the most potential for environmental impact, but offers the most protection for the roadway. And this is just a sloped rock structure that's grouted with concrete. There's an option of just replenishing the boulders that have been displaced and trying to restore it to what it originally was. Or we can leave the area as is, but of course, it's the lowest cost, but it doesn't really address the problem at hand. So looking at both areas I talked about, we anticipate a lot of the questions will focus on the construction. So we're hoping to do the work at night to minimize impact to businesses, and also try to keep 1 lane of traffic open at all times. The sidewalk and the parking on the ocean side of the road will have to be temporarily closed. And we plan on having a community meeting when we get closer to construction to answer questions about the traffic disruptions. And I have here construction 2022 at the earliest. And you might be wondering, why is it going to take so long for us to do this project? And I'll get to that in the next slide. But I wanted to show you the list of groups that we've consulted, and as well as agencies and utility companies. So I know you probably can't read this, but there's, of course, West Maui Taxpayers Association, Lahaina Restoration Foundation, Lahaina Town Action Committee, Ahamoku, the Lahaina Honolulu Senior Citizens Club. We also are planning to do a public meeting next month here. When those meeting details are finalized, we'll probably issue a press release and can invite the West Maui Taxpayers Association. This is the list of permits and approvals we need to go through before we start construction. So we are at the step before the environmental assessment, which is the early consultation. So it's funny that the previous presenter was speaking about too much government. But it's a very environmentally and historically sensitive area, which is why we have all these approvals to go through. That concludes my presentation. I have some materials on the table over there if you'd like to take some information. It has my contact information. Feel free to reach me with any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you very much for those of you who stayed with us, thank you so much for your patience. Thank you, and tomorrow night, back here, same thing, not the same thing, excuse me, completely different, Community Plan Action Committee, and you're invited to come back and find out some of the things we're doing. Thank you for for coming, joining with us, and those of you on Akaku, get a chance to see this, we'll get the rebroadcast schedule. I know there's a lot of people who want to know this information. Fortunately, since we're capturing this, it'll be rebroadcast, and it'll be perpetually kept in our Vimeo link on our website as well, so people can come back and refer to it and re-see it again, which is awesome. Thank you,
Yeah.
and thanks to Akaku.
Joe, I will be breaking it down in presentations as well.
He'll be breaking it down in presentations
So
as
if
well.
people want to just watch individual ones, they can.
Okay, instead of watching the whole annual meeting, there'll be cut segments so they can just
They
go
can
right
do
to a
both.
specific presentation.
Right.
Beautiful. Oh, that's an awesome improvement. Thank you, Chivo. That's really good. Well, again, thank you all very much. Happy New Year. God bless you, and aloha.